Well, it's that time of the year again when the country's tertiary institutions welcome thousands of students to pursue various programs on campus. It is a defining period for many students who would have done, of course, their free senior high school policy, only to end up with the reality of having to pay accommodation in addition to their tuition and other costs as well. Many parents struggle to cope with the high costs, even in heavily subsidized public universities. This has piled so much unbearable pressure on students and also parents in a way that forces some to find sinful or immoral ways of survival, which filters into the world of work when they have completed school. So what will be an ideal solution to the emerging crisis situation? This afternoon, we speak to students, parents, and policymakers and academics as well to find a solution. First, though, let's bring you what we know about the numbers heading into our public universities and the potential problems we're facing in terms of accommodation. So you see the distribution of the time lapse of how increasingly we're looking at a surge in the number of students going into the public universities, shooting from somewhere around 375,763 in 2020, all the way to 448,674 in 2023. That's where we are now as a country, and there are a number of factors accounting for this. Well, the situation, as we know, is no different in other public universities. The Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor Johnson Nyako Bwampo, and also Professor Kweku Educhum Ayim Boache, Vice-Chancellor Cape Coast Technical University, and others also raised concerns in previous interviews with Joy News. Listen.
We all know that education is shared responsibility. The university itself, the government, and then the people, the private people. Fortunately, the government has set the university up, gave us a big tract of land. We are having difficulties with the encroachment, but we have huge tract of land that we are asking private people to support us, put up accommodation for the students. Over the years, people come, they do the presentation, we sign MOUs with them, but they don't come back again.
Why don't they come back?
Well, I think it's about capital. Normally, they don't have the money. When we have signed the MOU with them, then they use the MOU to secure financial resources to put up the building. But I'm sure they have not been successful. But the university, through the superannuation scheme, is trying to put something. You know, we have done one before, and this time we are working how to put another big hostel facility for our students. That's another area. We are also trying to improve the existing ones. And then other people are also putting up hostels within the community. But they should make sure that they do not encroach on our lands, because it's important. Because I was a student here in the 80s. We were not as many as we are now. Currently, we have almost 25,000 students on campus, regular students. And we could not even admit the students who applied to the university for admission especially because at that time we linked admission to accommodation. And so we were unable to admit more students. So there's that potential for the university to grow. And as the population of Ghana is growing, then the university, the student population is also growing. So therefore, we must also prepare to receive the students, give them the training they need, so that they can contribute meaningfully towards the development of our country.
The parent paying the fees is looking for beneficence, is looking for value for money. And so if we, the TUs, can again prove that when your ward comes through the system, be it a diploma or post-dip or BTech, or even masters that we are offering now, you know, we are running masters, you know, they are on the job, you know, or they are readily employed, or they can readily employ some other person. So it calls for a concerted effort. Government is doing a lot, particularly at the pre-tertiary level where these STEM schools are coming up. But we know we can do much better as a group, the TUs, to build the confidence of people.
So does it mean that government should be intentional, should be deliberate, become biased towards the technical vocational education by giving you a lot of funding,
Absolutely.
a lot of development, so you become very attractive, and you could be the first port of call for every people?
That I think you've echoed my sentiments very accurately, because when we have those things, it makes the convincing easier. For example, someone comes in here and they realize we have only 318 beds. They just look around and say, well, I'm coming back, and they don't come back. They go to a university that gives them accommodation. So something as basic as accommodation. Well, we are in the process of securing some hostels and all of that, but these are real fundamental structural challenges that impede our growth and our acceptability as a co-equal, option, and not a second-rate option.
Well, my colleague Kenneth JC spent a good part of today at the University of Ghana to interact with some of the students and school authorities about the situation, and here are some of the interactions. Well, and we'll be getting that for you in a jiffy, of course, trying to encapsulate the situation on campus, including the University of Ghana, where my colleague Kenneth Jesse has been to. Fortunately, Ken is here, and of course, great to have you on the show. The point about the university, and in this case, the University of Ghana, camps up because this is the premier university.
Right.
Admits a significant number of the tertiary students.
That's true. Well, I earlier spoke to the chair of the heads of the halls at the university, that's Dr. Margaret Amankwa-Poku, who did mention that, first of all, they do not guarantee accommodation on campus for first-year students. So what they do is that they have an allocation of 3,000 beds, and then it was being fought over by 5,000 students. It's a random allocation thing. You are pre-informed ahead of time that if you want to be accommodated on campus, it's not a guarantee. So you enter a sort of raffle. They do a random shuffling.
Oh, so you're not even certain where you're going to.
Exactly. So they do not guarantee you that you're going to get accommodation on campus. So when they did that, 3,000 students got it. The remaining 2,000 do not have it. So unfortunately, they'll have to find their own, sort of accommodation to sleep.
Let's talk about the out, in, whatever it is, policy that guarantees you as a student to stay on campus for the first year.
Right. So
but you're on your own basically.
Right. So,
after the first year.
Okay. So the out policy basically you come level 100. Right. You are offered accommodation on campus, and then in the subsequent years you have to go off campus, and then your final year you can come back to the school halls. And then they did mention that previously. First-year students were guaranteed residential permit or, guaranteed having accommodation in one of the school halls, but now it's not like that. And some of the students I spoke with did lament, bitterly. I spoke with one of the students who's coming from Tamale. She's been offered medicine. She has nowhere to stay. She has to perch at her uncle's place. One also comes from Takrady, who also has nowhere to stay. She's had to look for accommodation on her own. And even those that did get accommodation say that there has been an increase. And Dr. Margaret Amankwa-Poku did confirm to me that even the residential halls or the school halls have witnessed a 33% increase in it. So they are all culminating into the accommodation crisis that is on the University of Ghana campus. So I believe if the video is ready, we can now hear from some of the students who are lamenting about the accommodation crisis on campus.
Coming from?
Northern region, Tamale.
Northern region.
Yes, please.
And you came here and still haven't gotten accommodation on campus?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So how are you coping? Where do you stay now?
I'm with my uncle at Medina. So yeah, I come from there every time. Since yesterday, yes.
Since when did you report to campus?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Came to do my registration. Yeah.
And you were told that you don't have access to the residential halls.
Yeah, they said so far they are full. Yes, so my uncle is still talking to people to try to get me some.
Was it that when you were applying, they didn't make you aware that even if you are coming from Tamale, you are not guaranteed or assured of getting residential halls, or you reported late?
They said accommodations are not guaranteed. It's a random allocation something. So if you're not lucky, you might not get. That's what they said.
We are also hearing that even with a random allocation, you have to apply for it. Did you apply for it?
No, I didn't, because the time I paid my school fees, I think it was too late. So yeah, I didn't do that.
So classes hasn't started yet, correct?
I don't know, but some of my friends are saying they have been going for lectures. Yes, that's what they said.
So you have not started lectures because you're not done with your registration, or because you are not getting a permanent residency on campus?
Both. both of them, yes.
So how is this affecting you?
It's stressful, yes, because they charge a lot with the taxi drivers. It's so stressful, yeah.
Where are you coming from?
It's Madina. Madina, North Legon.
When you came, you wanted to be on campus. You wanted a residential hall. What were you told?
They said it's full. It's a limit.
Well, some of the students, they're expressing their frustration about the situation. It's no doubt that indeed it is becoming a crisis. There is a challenge on campus. But what we also want to see is the response from the authorities and school management.
Right. The authority has been responding, saying that they are offering alternative to the students who have not been offered residential accommodation. So they've prescribed some nearby hostels for them to go to, but the students complain that it's too far away, so they are unable to go there. And they are also warning the students that fraudsters and tricksters have taken advantage of this, promising students hostel beds, new rooms, and all that. So they are issuing a caution sort of to the students to be very wary of these fraudsters who will contact them and say that, look, we have accommodation for you, come look for it. If you do not get accommodation on campus, you can look elsewhere.
Well, let's listen. Now, to bring in a number of individuals joining us to help do this discussion. NUC's President Daniel Pon Sherman is joining us now. He's on phone. Lawyer Kwame Chan, lecturer, University of Ghana, and also Peter Nochukoti, a member of the Parliament's Education Committee. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us. Daniel, let's start off from the concerns of the students. Do you, first of all, agree that indeed we're having an accommodation crisis on campus? Daniel, one more time, I hope you can hear me. I'm asking if you agree, first of all, that we're having
I can hear you.
an accommodation crisis on campus.
Yeah, I'm here. Good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Daniel. I'm asking you once more, do you agree that indeed we're facing an accommodation crisis across public universities in Ghana?
All right. We're aware of the accommodation crisis happening on our various campuses, and I must sincerely submit that this has been one of the heartbreaking moments as far as the National Union of Ghana students is concerned, because over the past 5 years we've been fighting and working on how we could have an advancement and adjustment when it comes to the hostel prices and fees charged for the various halls, because clearly when you look at the numbers, the free SHS is turning out over 1.4 million students. They are turning out to the various tertiary institutions. It clearly tells you that there should be a proper plan that could be adapted in absorbing most of our students into the tertiary institutions. If I've been given free senior high school and then graduate with a very good grade, come back to the tertiary, and then I can't afford what then becomes the essence of having me in the tertiary institution. So it's one of the worrying statements. Now, for the past few years, we've been lamenting on how that most of our students come to school and then, because of this accommodation crisis, some of them are sleeping in libraries, others are sleeping on lovers' bench, others are moving helter-skelter without even knowing where to lay down their head. So it makes academics and other related stuff very difficult for these students. And clearly this year we are experiencing a similar thing, which is very heartbreaking. Most of our students traveling from very far to come and study, and now they don't even know their fate as to whether they'll be getting hall of residence or not. They come and onto their surprise, they get there and there's no accommodation for them. And these students cannot even afford these private hostels out there. Already, their hall fees are too high. We are even still deliberating on how there could be reductions and adjustments. And the person doesn't even get the hall. Not to even talk of the hostel prices, which is like 4 times the price of the hall. So we've been preaching this message for long, that if indeed our government, which really values education in our country, if we want to absorb a lot of our students to the tertiary environment and also have a lot of things changing, then we should be able to outline a practicable step as soon as possible, because each and every year we talk about hostel prices, each and every year we talk about how the price are skyrocketing, but yet we seem not to be seeing anything happening, no changes happening. So it's, as a matter of urgency, this particular government that really value education in our country should be really putting plans in place to help solve these challenges. You get to the universities and they are saying the reasons why they are increasing the price are linked to the fact that now they are asked to pay utility bills and a whole lot of bills on their own. So, which normally a hostel price is supposed to cost like 1,500 for a hall, is now costing over 2,000 to 3,000, which a normal student who went through the free access process cannot even afford.
I see. Just hold on for us, Daniel. It's a good time to also bring in Lawyer Komijan, lecturer at the University of Ghana, who's joining us now, and counsel the concerns of our students. How do we deal with this problem? Because it's been an age-old problem, especially for the University of Ghana. Lawyer
Hello.
Yes, I hope you can hear me, sir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Right.
I was saying thank you for inviting me to the show, and also my regards to your listeners. I have been around the university system teaching in Legon. This is my 25th year, and I have been a deputy senior tutor before in Akwafo Hall. So, and I'm still a fellow of Akwafo. I have a fair idea of what has gone wrong. It's the young man who spoke, I think spoke very well. We just saw it coming. And as a country, this is one of our collective failures. It's pure and simple. What can be done? Yes, there is a backlog of students coming through the system from all the frees. So there was the free basic, and now there is free SS, and people are even talking about free tertiary. So all the frees are bringing the numbers. And the people who brought the frees did not plan for the numbers when they were bringing them along. So the system has clogged, and it's become a very serious problem, to the extent that last week there was balloting at the University of Ghana, balloting for accommodation. And this is not the only time it has happened. So virtually we are doing lotto for accommodation. If you are lucky, you get. If you are not lucky, you don't get. Now, at least I know that these public universities have tried to engage in a public-private partnership kind of arrangement, allowing private sector people to build hostels on the campuses. But the flip side of it is the private sector people want to recoup their investment. So they have to charge economic rates for their hostels. That brings the question of affordability. So maybe what should happen is We should encourage more private sector investment in hostel development. Those who can reasonably afford should be encouraged to go to the private sector hostels, and the ones who are really not able to afford, you allocate the public or what we call the traditional halls to those people.
But that's a problem relating to cost and how they could, get return on investment early.
Yes. So the universities can also meet them halfway by giving them access to the land on very reasonable terms and providing a longer term duration for the leases. So if you give someone a lease for 50 years and it's subject to maybe peppercorn rent, so the universities should not seek to make money from the rents. I mean, give them the lands at peppercorn rent. What is the objective of the university? To ensure that your students get accommodation. So the universities should provide the land at reasonable rates or best peppercorn rates. Then the Republic of Ghana should find a way maybe to encourage the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, for example, to provide long-term financing for people to develop the hostels. Because at the current rate of interest in our commercial banks, I doubt if anybody will take a loan from the current system, 40% or 38%, to build a hostel accommodation. You probably have to charge through the roof to recover your investment. So you need, by now I am expecting that we should have had a national consultative conference on this subject, because if you are around the campus now and you see somebody who has come from Nankanduri, the first time into Accra, carrying their bags and baggages and sitting inside a hall, nowhere to go. We have seen these things for years. And when you encounter these situations and you are helpless, it diminishes you as a human being.
Let's hear from Peter Nochukwuchi, a member of Parliament serving on the Education Committee. And Honourable, you've been listening to the conversation as to what's happening on campus. For the very first time, we're seeing balloting for accommodation on the University of Ghana campus. From the policy angle, what are you considering to do as the Parliamentary Committee on Education, at least just to mount pressure on the Education Ministry and other stakeholders to bring about some changes in terms of accommodation on campus?
And a good day to my fellow Equafo. The issue is that since the introduction of cost sharing in the running and provision of tertiary education in the country, we have had the challenge of getting accommodation for all students on campus. What has happened is that over the years, we have failed as a nation to make sure that once we had increasing number of students, we should be expanding our facilities, especially that of accommodation for students on the various campuses of the universities and other tertiary institutions in the country. So we have failed in that direction. I remember last year, the students complained to us about the high cost of accommodation being offered by the private sector, who have put up facilities on the university campuses. And we had to come in to talk to these developers and then the owners of the facilities to make sure that they make accommodation available and then affordable to the students. We know government alone cannot do what is expected at this moment, but there should be a pragmatic procedure or approach to making sure that we increase the number of accommodation facilities in the various schools. If you take University of Ghana, for instance, but for the private sector involvement, I don't think about 30% of students on the campus of the University of Ghana will get accommodation. Yeah. As a committee, this matter has come before us. And what we have told the minister is that as a policy, government should make sure that they provide funds to those who are ready, the private sector, to put up these accommodation facilities or hostel facilities in the schools at a very affordable rate of interest. Even if you give them interest-free loan, as it's important, they can put up the accommodation for students, and then we'll negotiate the rate of payment and even the rent that students will pay. But where they have to go to the open market to go and then take the facility at a very high rate, how will they be able to recoup whatever they have invested, pay the interest, and make a profit? So we have made that proposal to the ministry to take up with government. Government should look for some sums of money for even the universities themselves, so that they can also put up these facilities for students, so that they can have their peace of mind and study. Until we do that, it will be very difficult to get accommodation easily available for students. And it is very, very disturbing, because when you visit the campus and you see the dilemma in which especially the first years find themselves, it is unfortunate. The in, out, in is also not working because of the large numbers. So as the lecturer said, they had to toss for them, which I think is not the best. So for me, government must come out with a program that will assist the developers so that they can put up hostels and then make it affordable to the students. Otherwise, we'll be failing in the provision of quality education at the tertiary level.
And I was just asking there if there are any measures you're taking at the parliamentary level just to try and engage government on this.
We deal directly with the Ministry of Education, and that's what we have made known to the minister when we met the various providers of hostel facilities, especially on the campus of University of Ghana, when we had complained of the exorbitant rates at which they were being given the accommodation. And we made that a suggestion to the ministry. We expect them to take our concern to cabinet or to the president for necessary action. So until that is done, as a committee, we don't have that mandate to do anything else. We are only to recommend, and we expect the relevant authorities through the Ministry of Education to take up the matter.
Let's go back to Daniel. And Daniel, I'm looking at the way forward now. What demands would you want to place before the authorities? And as NUGS, are you also taking some initiatives to tackle the problem?
Measures we are pleading that needs to be put in place. One of our issues has always been with the fact that the sources of funding for education has now been capped. The main statutory funds that is supposed to be funding most of the activities happening on our various campuses. But trust me, now if we tell the private man to still come around to build the hostels and everything, it's their own business. You get it. And normally there's no proper regulation when it comes to the amount of fees that should be charged. Good enough if we get various universities to reduce the terms and conditions they are giving these private hostels to build more hostels on the various campuses will go a long way in helping. In doing so, we are so pleasing on government. If probably we could look at the uncapping of GET funds. In the few past years, we could have GET funds putting up a lot of the traditional halls on most of the campuses were put forth by the intervention of GET funds. And now these main statutory funds that's supposed to be funding most of our educational activities has now been capped, making it very extremely difficult for universities to be putting up these structures. On a normal day, we should have had a lot of hostels or halls on the various university campuses. If that happens, at a point, it will then inform the private individual who is putting up private hostels to also adjust their payments, because now all students are now moving to the university halls or university hostels. If that is done, it's going to go a long way in helping reduce a lot of things. It's clearly happening on KNUST campus. Now, the second thing we want to ask we want to recommend, especially with the University of Ghana. Now, when it comes to KNUST, the whole application, it's online. So there's a duration that is being given for each and everybody to apply. You are not using the quote-unquote, the lotto systems where randomly you are just being given a hall.
All right.
The halls are there, you apply. So when there are no available rooms, you clearly get to know that this particular hall is full.
Okay.
So that you could then think through and then find out the plans and measures you are going to put in place in getting a hostel, a different hostel.
All
but
right.
here is the case, that structure has not been implemented here. So you just come to school and out of the blue you get to know that you didn't really get a hostel or a hall. And you've not made any prior preparations towards that, putting out a very tight corner. So we are pleading that if University of Ghana and other universities could adapt that same system, as we are putting plans in place to help solve or mitigate the hostel challenge.
And for you, Lawyer Kwame-Jan, the solution and the way forward?
From the previous speakers, we are all aligned as to what should be done. We need to increase the number of available accommodations, but we also have to revisit the question of the residential university system, which we inherited from the colonial masters. Most of us who also went to graduate school abroad, you don't have these large residential universities, in most of the countries. So now that there is mobility in terms of access to transportation and so on, we should revisit that concept. Is it the way to go in terms of aggregating a large number of students living on the same campus as their residence and their place of learning, or you begin to provide the more places of learning and allow people to live at different locations and come to school? So that is something we have to look at as a country. Do we want to continue with the old scheme of the residential type of university, or we go the way that most of these other universities in other countries are going? We have to, as a nation, look at these things again.
All right. For you, Honorable Peter Notukoti.
Yeah, the way to find a solution to this is the suggestion made by the last speaker. We need to look at our boarding facilities, even right from secondary schools in the country. These are things we inherited from our colonial masters. And there's a time for us, or this is a time for us to take a second look at it. But in the meantime, we need to make sure that before we deboardinize or make these our institutions not residential, as it happens in other developed countries, I think we need to make sure that we get the facilities available for them. Government, as I say, must provide the facilities, the resources now. Get fund the free hand to make sure that they give money to universities to complete the facilities that they've started and have gotten stagnated for over 5 or 10 years now, to make sure that those facilities are completed for use by students.
I'm grateful to you all for your time here on The Pulse.